Hi everyone, Bruce here at eTrailer. Today we're going to take a look at and install our Air Lift WirelessONE onboard air compressor on our 2024 Ram 2500. If you've got airbags or you're looking to get airbags, I highly recommend an onboard air compressor. The reason for that is there's no more stopping at a gas station to adjust your airbags if needed, or if you don't have a compressor at home, then you're going to need to get one at home to go ahead and fill up your airbags. With an onboard compressor, you can do it with a touch of a button right from your vehicle. Now, the onboard compressor does come with a fancy remote, but I highly recommend using the app. It actually responds much quicker. So right now we're sitting at 5 PSI on our airbags, and to bump that up, I just hit the up arrow, and you can hear the compressor kick on. Now we can also lower it back down to 5, and you can hear the compressor actually let the air out. Now with that being said, you really do need to be outside the vehicle, because if you just loaded a heavy load and you're squatting, you're going to need to see how high you actually need to raise that up to get you back to level. Now, looking at the app, you see here that we can store some settings. So if you're constantly hauling the same load, you can put in here a certain setting and whatever you need to be to get your vehicle level. And you can name it. Say you've got 2 different trailers that you haul and you know the weight and where that vehicle needs to sit. You can go ahead and pre-program those, and then all you need to do is hit that and it would automatically go there. You can also do the same thing with the remote, but again, like I said, it is much easier through the app. The nice thing about the onboard air compressor is it is completely hidden. You don't see it, you don't see any of the wiring, and we centrally locate it right in this area here. That way you're able to use the remote or the app to go ahead and adjust your heights. Now looking up under here, we've got a nice neat place to go ahead and mount everything on the frame, and everything's nice and hidden, and the manifold is waterproof as well as the compressor. Now the airbags that we did install on this vehicle today go from 5 to 150 PSI. Now with that in mind, the compressor does take a little while to get up to say 50, even 40 PSI. So just keep that in mind. It will do it, but it might take a minute or two. Now with that said, as far as the installation goes, it actually is pretty simple. You've got to run a few air lines back to your airbags that you already have and just tee into them, and then run some wires up front to the engine bay. It's really pretty simple. With that being said, if you don't want to tackle this at home, check out our dealer locator on etrailer.com. But if you do want to go ahead and tackle it, stick around, I'll show you how. To begin the installation of our onboard compressor and the manifold that does come with that, we need to pick out a location. So what we did here is our manifold is about right in the middle of the door here, and the reason you want that centrally located in the vehicle is because it does have a Bluetooth remote, wireless remote, that will control your PSI and your airbags. And we need to go ahead and mount the compressor as well. Let's go ahead and get underneath and check out the locations that we chose. So here's our air compressor and here's our manifold, okay? So these got self-tapping screws. What we're gonna do here is just go ahead and drill the holes, kind of set it up there, mark your holes, drill your holes, and go ahead and mount this up. Now, if we go ahead and look at the compressor part, it does have a black wire coming off of it here. That needs to go to ground. The red wire is going to connect to the red wire of the manifold wiring here, which is this one right here. Now, if we continue to go to the manifold does have a template in the instructions to go ahead and mount this. Again, just mark your holes and mount it up. It's pretty simple. Just make sure you've got this in the correct orientation. You can't mount this upside down where the plug is down, because you don't want any water or anything getting inside of it. So if you notice ours, the plug is up on the top side, and we've got airline fittings on this side and one on the top. One will come from the compressor and go to the manifold, and the other ones go out to your airbags. Let's go ahead and continue on with the wiring. You notice the plug on that runs down. We got to run up to the engine compartment. If we just followed a factory wiring harness here going along the frame, you keep looking, we're going up towards the engine bay, around the body mount, and straight up to our engine bay. Now just keep in mind, you want to keep that away from any moving parts or hot parts like exhaust, because you don't want your wires melting. Now we need to go ahead and run our air lines back to our airbags. Notice here, I've got one line coming up, and it's going to end up going to the manifold, and then the compressor ties to the manifold as well, but we'll show you that in a little bit. Let's just go ahead and see how we ran the airline. And I've got a service loop here. I like to have a loop in case there's any problems or I need to move anything. I've got plenty of line. Now, let's just go ahead and follow that back to the rear of the vehicle. If you look up, you can follow that along. And just keep it away from any heat sources or pinch sources. And when you are running this, don't bend the line or kink it in any way. It's just running up above, and then we go back over the frame here, and then back in right up here. And we came through, and we popped out a hole right here, and it's gonna run right back to a T-fitting. Now the T-fitting, you're gonna have one side coming from our compressor to our T-fitting. This side is gonna wrap around and come back to our passenger side airbag, and this one here runs over to our driver side airbag underneath this little piece here. And if we look on the other side, it pokes through and then comes back around and right here to another T-fitting. Now this T-fitting here, this obviously comes from our passenger side. This goes to our driver side airbag, comes up and around and in and back out and down to the airbag. And then our Schrader valve comes on the other side. It runs up through here, and we went ahead and mounted it on the actual hitch here for our Schrader valve. A couple things I want to mention when you're running the airlines and actually connecting them up. A tubing cutter is what you really need, or you can use a utility knife and just lay this down and cut across it with a sharp utility knife. Do not use scissors or anything else, because it will actually smash the tubing and won't give you a clean cut like this does. It gives you a nice clean cut and it doesn't smash the tubing. Now, putting the tubing in the fittings, you're going to actually just push the tubing in, just like this. Push in till it stops, and then pull it out, and you notice it locks it up. Now, if you do have to get that back out, all you really have to do is this little silver piece here. You're going to push that in, push the tubing in, and pull it back out. So now we've got a little piece of tubing that we need to run from the compressor to the manifold. So we're going to use some silicone and spray and get this tubing onto this fitting here, and then we're going to connect it up to the top of the manifold up here. It's kind of tight to go on there, but once you get it started, just keep pushing it. You get a good connection there, and then we can loop it around and cut it to the length we need. Like I said, I like doing service loops, so we're going to do that and go ahead and connect it to our manifold. So we've got our air lines installed, so we're coming from the compressor here. This one loops around and goes onto the top of the manifold here. And the other one coming out goes back to our airbags. It just loops around and goes back to the back. Now, as far as our wiring connections, we take the red and white from our wire harness here, and we connect it to our compressor positive, which is the red. And we do use shrink tubing butt connectors, I highly recommend those. There are some in the kit as well. And our black wire, again, I think I mentioned this before when we mounted the compressor. That wire is going to go back up underneath here to go ahead and ground it to the frame. Now what we need to do is go ahead and grab our plug right here, and it does have a locking tab on it, so keep in mind of that. And we're going to just go ahead and plug this in right to the top of the unit and lock that tab. Now we can go ahead and go up top and make our final connections. Now we are up in the engine compartment on the passenger side. You see our wires coming up. The way we got these up here is we just took some of the extra airline and ran down to the floor and connected our wires and pulled that airline up through. Now our pink wire is an optional ignition source wire that we're not going to be using. So we're going to be focusing on our red and black. And the black is going to go to the negative side of the battery, and our red will go to our positive side of the battery through a fuse holder. So the fuse holder, they normally send it without the fuse in it, but just make sure the fuse is not in there, because you could actually pop the fuse if it was in there and you're trying to make these connections. So what we need to do is go ahead and cut this here. And we're going to use an eyelet on one side and a butt connector on the other. Strip that back. And we're going to go with the butt connector on this side. Again, these are heat shrink butt connectors that are supplied in this kit. Get our crimpers. Crimp this guy down. I'm going to go ahead and give that a pull, make sure we got a good connection. And now we're going to put an eyelet on this side. Again, get our crimpers and go ahead and crimp that down. So now we've made our fuse holder. And now we just got to connect this end to the red, and this end will go to our positive on our battery. So we've got plenty of wire here. So I'm probably going to go ahead and cut the red a little bit. I am going to go ahead and cut it right here. And get our crimpers again. Crimp that down. Give it a tug, and we're good to go. Now we're going to go ahead and grab a heat gun. If you don't have a heat gun, you can use a hairdryer with this. So let's go ahead and shrink down this butt connector. Once we've got that shrunk down, we can go ahead and connect to our positive side of our battery. We're going to grab a 10 millimeter and we're going to go to this post right here. Just go ahead and disconnect or remove that nut there. And grab our positive side. Go ahead and connect that. And put our nut back on. Go ahead and tighten that back down. And now all we need to do is go ahead and put an eyelet on the black, and we'll connect that to the negative side of the battery. So now that we do have our connections, you see the negative wires hooked to our negative battery, positive hooked to our positive. Now we can go ahead and insert our fuse into our fuse holder. Now when we do this, it's going to put the manifold into pairing mode to pair our remote that we've got sitting right here. So I'm going to go ahead and put the fuse in. Make sure you get it all the way in there. So that's in. Now I'm going to pull the tab off of the remote, and we're going to try and get this to pair. I'm just going to hit any button on here, and it should automatically come up scanning. And what this is going to do, it's going to, there will be a serial number that actually pops up on here once it finds it, and then you're going to select that particular serial number. Once the unit starts scanning, it will come up with a number, which that number on the top is just the serial number of the actual manifold. So all I'm going to do is go ahead and hit the single dot to select that, and now it says pairing. Once it does pair, that means your remote is paired to your unit. Now, you can also download the app. Now, we do have all our connections made. We've got this paired and the remote paired, but we need to go ahead and blow it up to 70 PSI to go ahead and check for leaks. So let's go ahead and pump it up. Now we're gonna grab a bottle of soapy water, and we're just gonna squirt these down and check for leaks. Little bubbles are okay, but if it starts blowing big bubbles out, then you've got a leak. You're gonna need to take the airline back off, recut it, and put it back in. Looks like we're good there. Once you have tested everything out and you didn't find anything wrong or no leaks, this does complete our installation of our Air Lift WirelessONE compressor system on our 2024 Ram 2500 Bighorn. I'm Bruce. Thanks for watching.